Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that an humble address be presented to Her Majesty, expressing the deepest sympathies of this House on the death of His Royal Highness, the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and the heartfelt thanks of this House and this nation for his unfailing dedication to this country and the Commonwealth, exemplified in his distinguished service in the Royal Navy in the Second World War, his commitment to young people in setting up the Duke of Edinburgh's award, a scheme which has touched the lives of millions across the globe, his early passionate commitment to the environment and his unstinting support to Your Majesty throughout his life. Mr. Speaker, it is fitting that on Saturday His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh will be conveyed to his final resting place in a Land Rover which Prince Philip designed himself with a long wheelbase and capacious rear cabin, because that vehicle's unique and idiosyncratic silhouette reminds the world that he was above all a practical man who could take something very traditional, whether a machine or indeed a great national institution, and find a way by his own ingenuity to improve it, to adapt it for the 20th and the 21st century. That gift for innovation was apparent from his earliest career in the Navy. When he served in the Second World War, he was mentioned in dispatches for his alertness and appreciation of the situation during the Battle of Cape Matapan, and he played a crucial role in helping to sink 2 enemy cruisers. But it was later, during the invasion of Sicily, that he was especially remembered by his crewmates for what he did to save their own ship. In a moment of high danger, at night, when HMS Wallace was vulnerable to being blown up by enemy planes, he improvised a floating decoy, complete with fires to make it look like a stricken British vessel, so that the Wallace was able to slip away and the enemy took out the decoy. He was there at Tokyo Bay in 1945, barely 200 yards away from the Japanese surrender on the deck of USS Missouri. But he wasn't content just to watch history through his binoculars. It seems that he used the lull to get on with repainting the hull of HMS Whelp, and throughout his life, a life that was of necessity, wrapped from such a young age in symbol and ceremony, one can see that same instinct to look for what was most useful, for most practical, and what would take things forward. He was one of the first people in this country to use a mobile phone. In the 1970s, he was driving an electric taxi on the streets of London, the forerunner of the modern low-carbon fleet, and again, a vehicle of his own specifications. He wasn't content just to be a carriage driver. He played a large part in pioneering and codifying the sport of competitive carriage driving. And if it is true, Mr. Speaker, that carriage driving is not a mass participation sport, not yet, he had other novel ideas that touched the lives of millions, developed their character and confidence, their teamwork and self-reliance. It was amazing and instructive to listen on Friday to the Cabinet's tributes to the Duke and to hear how many of them were proud to say that they or their children had benefited from taking part in his Duke of Edinburgh award schemes. I will leave it to the House to speculate as to who claimed to have got a gold award and who got a bronze. But I believe those ministers spoke for millions around the world, across this country, who felt that the Duke had in some way touched their lives. People whose work he supported in the course of an astonishing 22,219 public engagements. People he encouraged and people, yes, that he amused. It is true that he occasionally drove a coach and horses through the finer points of diplomatic protocol.